Hey everybody, it's Carol with Refunction Crafts. Okay, so today I am actually going to do a video on some resin casting, and forgive me if this video is not perfect. I'm going to do my best here, but just remember, you guys, I am not a complete pro at resin casting. This is something that's actually fairly new to me. And so I just want you all to know that, you know, if you are a resin pro, please don't ding me too hard for this video. It's been requested by a lot of people that have seen some of my projects, and so I'm just going to do my best to try and do a good video for you guys today. So here I go. Okay, so these are some of the items that I'm going to be using. I'm using popsicle sticks for stirring. I'm using toothpicks, and I'll show you what I'm going to use those for in just a little bit. We have, this is a different brand of resin that I have not used before, and the reason that I'm using this brand is because money is tight, and so I am having to go easy on my spending, so I'm trying this resin out. I've made a couple of things with it already, and it seems to work pretty well. What I usually use is called art resin, and it's quite a bit more expensive than this, but so far, you know, we'll see, because this time we're going to be doing clear casting, and so that will tell if there's going to be like more bubbles or if it's not going to be as clear or what have you. So this brand here is called Naked Fusion, and this is crystal clear, and this is a 2-part epoxy resin. So you can see on this bottle where it says A. This is part A. This is the epoxy resin. This bottle here is bottle B. And you have to be mindful of this, because you can't pour 2 parts of the same, because this is actually, as you can see here, the epoxy hardener. So just so that you know, this is the hardener, this is the resin. So this is what you call a 2-part epoxy resin. So what I'm going to be doing is I've got these 2 handy dandy little cups that I'm going to be pouring equal parts of this resin into and mixing up. So without further ado, I'm going to pour part A in first, and that's going to go in this one. You want to make sure that you are measuring this exactly half and half, because if you put too much, especially of the hardener, your resin will come out tacky, and it won't ever really cure properly. So I'm going to put, let's see, about that much. I need to make sure I put enough in here to cover everything that I'm going to be doing. Hopefully I'm doing that. And now we're going to do part B. So I'm pouring it, and I'm just looking at these 2 containers and making sure that their line is equal, is equal. So the next thing that I'm going to do, I have my 2 parts of resin and hardener, and so I'm going to take my popsicle stick, and I'm going to take this part and I'm going to pour it into the other part. Now what I want to do, and this is really important, you guys, when you're working with resin, you want your parts of A and B to be as close, I mean down to the gram if you can, to even as you possibly can. So as you can see, I'm taking this resin from this container here, and I'm scraping the sides, and I'm getting every little bit that I can get out of this cup and into the other cup. Super important, you guys. You want to get as equal as you possibly can. So, okay. So that's about all I'm going to get out of there. So I'm going to put that back there. And I'm going to start mixing this. And when you start mixing your resin, you have to mix it for 2 minutes. Or actually, I should say 2 to 3 minutes is what you have to mix. So I'm going to do that. And actually, the best thing for you to do when you're doing these kinds of pours that I'm going to be doing today, you want to mix this as carefully as possible and get as few bubbles as possible. And I just did not do that, so mine's going to have a few bubbles, but we have a cure for that. And I'll show you what that is as well once we get to it. But you can see when I'm mixing this up, oops, I'm sorry, I am scraping the sides of this container. I'm scraping the bottom because you want to get every little bit of part A and part B mixed in so that you get the right cure when it's all said and done. Because if you don't mix this all up and you have stuff that's stuck to the edges of this cup and it goes in separately to your pour, you're going to have a sticky project and it's never going to cure properly. So this is the most important part, is your mixing. My suggestion is that you always mix for 3 minutes. Don't mix for under 3 minutes because it says 2 to 3 minutes on the package, but as far as I'm concerned, I would rather be safe than sorry and make sure that I've mixed for 3 minutes and gotten everything combined. So that's what I'm doing here. Okay. And what will happen is while you're mixing it, you can generally see swirls, and when you see little swirls in there, you know it's not mixed completely. So you want to make sure that you don't see any of those swirls by the time you've got it all mixed up. Okay, so we've got that mixed. And I'm going to put this stick over here on top of a crumpled up paper towel. Okay, so now we don't want to reuse the part A cup. Once you're done with that, throw it in the garbage because you don't want to pour anything into that cup and end up ruining your resin. So I'm going to take an empty cup. Actually, I'm going to use this one. This is sand. And this sand I purchased at Michael's in this little plastic jar. And it's by Ashland. So this is what the lid on this jar looks like. So I had white sand, but I wanted sand, the color of sand. And this says it's called coarse stone granules. So this is ground up stones to look like sand, which I suppose is what sand really is. So I have some sand in this little container. So the thing that I'm going to do now, because I'm going to be doing some ocean type pendants, I'm going to pour some of this into the sand. And I'm going to mix it up. I'm just going to pour a little bit and I'm going to mix it and see, you know, where my consistency is. I don't want it to be so thin that it's all just kind of running all over the place, but I also don't want it to be so thick that it's still gonna fall apart. I think I'm gonna put just a little bit more in there, and that will probably be it. Just a tiny bit, just enough to get it to a consistency that you want. Sorry about the crunching noises, you guys. Yummy. That sounds just yummy. Okay, so it's kind of like making mud pies. Okay, so this is the consistency that I've got my sand. Okay, now, just so that you guys know, I have exactly or around about 45 minutes to work with this resin. So I don't want to take my time with this too much, because then I'm going to end up with resin that's hardening and I haven't finished all of the projects that I want to do. So what I'm going to do is I've got all of these pretty shells and moss and some other things that I'm going to be using. And I'm going to move that over there so I don't drop it again. And so I'm just putting those closer up where I can get to them. But this sand, what I'm going to do is, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put some of this sand. I'm going to use these molds, and this, I cut out this section because what happens with these molds is they're wonderful, but they do go bad over time. And so you have to make sure, like these, everything started sticking to them. So I would imagine these probably aren't going to last too much longer, but they're still in good shape, so I'm using them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use these molds to do some ocean scene pieces. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to take some of this sand and I'm just going to kind of drizzle it down here in the bottom. And I'm going to put it in a couple of them, or a few of them I should say, because I'm going to do several of these. Now I have not done any like this. I have not done any with sand in them yet. So this is new for me, you guys. So if it turns out to be an epic fail, you're going to see my epic fail on video, and I'm going to show it to you and show you what not to do. Because again, I'm fairly new at resin, and I don't know it all, and I don't know, you know, I'm not sure if I'm doing this exactly right or not. So I think I'll use these two down here, and that'll be it. Whoops, 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 whoops. Now I think what a lot of people do when they do these kind is they use UV resin, which I do not have. UV resin is a wonderful product. If I could afford it, I would be using UV resin right now to do this project, because I'd be able to do everything all at one time, show you the finished product right then and there, and I wouldn't have to stop and start my video. But because I don't have UV resin, we're gonna do it this way. So let's see, I think maybe I'm gonna do one. I really don't have much sand left here. Maybe I'll do this tiny one. I'm gonna do one in this round mold here. I have a couple of these little round molds, and they're actually made to do balls, like a whole ball piece. I'm going to steal some out of there. But I haven't had a lot of success using them that way, so I'm using them differently. I'm going to have to play around with these a little bit more to try and figure out how I can do better using them. Okay, so there we go. So we have sand in these molds. So I'm going to set that one aside, And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use one of these cleaned out cups. Looks like there's a little bit of water in there. I washed these. These are just like the little cups you get from restaurants and stuff. Well, I've started washing them out so that I have them to use in my resin projects because they come in extremely handy. So what I want to do, actually, first, before I do that, I'm going to start picking out some of these little pieces to put in these. And I only did 3 of these turtles, darn it. I've got these little turtles, and these were silver, and I just painted them. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be putting these upside down. So they're going to be looking strange to you, but that's okay. I'm going to put one there, and I'll put one in this one. And then I'm going to use some of this green moss that I've had for about 15 years. I use such little bits at a time that it just is always here. So I'm going to add a little bit of that, just kind of touch it down into that sand and lay it down in there. I'm bummed that I didn't do more of these turtles. That was silly of me. I don't know what I was thinking because I have a ton of them. I should have just done a whole bunch of them at one time. And this is where your toothpicks come in handy because I'm going to sort of try and lay these down and actually get it so that it's not going to be sticking up all over the place. But I want this to kind of look like, you know, like the sea plants. Okay, let's see here. Oopsies. That came out of there, and we'll leave that there. And maybe put a piece over here. I'm going to try and shove it into this sand a little bit so that maybe that will prevent this from floating up once I pour more resin in there. Because this sea moss will tend, or the moss will tend to float up. And because I'm doing this all in sort of one pour, you know, it's just not going to be the most ideal way to do this. And this is why anybody who is a resin pro may make comments on my video and not be happy with the way that I'm doing this. But I'm doing it this way because it's what I can do right now to make this video. And, you know, if it works out great, then great. Nobody has anything to say if it comes out okay. So, and what I'm doing here is I'm just sort of putting a little bit of the sand on top of the moss. And we'll put a little piece in there. Cover it with a little bit of sand. And then we have all these pretty shells that we're going to use. Let's see, this turtle. We're going to put a shell right there. I'm going to put this turtle sort of swimming up there. And I want now these are some that I made as well with little pearls in them. So we're going to have some little shells with pearls go in there. And for this one, I think I'm going to put that one there. And this one is going to go, whoopsies. Sorry, you guys. I know that I may be getting in the way of the camera, but I'm trying to adjust these so that they come out looking nice. And I'm going to put one more shell there. And we've got these pretty, I've got like blue and green. These shells are really, oopsie, I just dropped one, darn it. Don't want to lose those shells. So there's a blue one and a green one. Super pretty. I'm trying to use some of my smaller ones so that they don't stick up. They don't end up sticking up over, oh boy, over the resin once I pour the resin in. So I'm gonna put that one there, and maybe a little tiny blue one over here. And we have some more with pearls in them. Okay, Guy, you get in right there. Get up into that sand. Okay, and I'm going to put that blue one there. And let's see. I think what I'm going to do now is I've also got some of this, which I want to definitely put a little bit of that in a couple of them. Put that there. Put a little piece there. And let's see. So right now, it's just a matter of placement. I'm placing all of these little bits and pieces of things that I want to have in there to make, to provide some interest in the piece. So that's what I'm doing now. And really what I should do is I should put a little bit of resin in there to sort of stick these down to. And normally what you would do is you'd put a layer of resin, you'd lay all this stuff down so it doesn't float, and then you would go from there. You would let it cure for a little while, and then you would pour more resin on top, maybe lay a few more items in there, and you'd have your finished piece. But what I'm doing now is I'm taking some little rhinestones. Do not want that one. And I'm putting them in there so that we can have a little bit of a treasure in there that makes it interesting. So right now I'm pulling out the little light blue ones. And then I have a couple, and I'm going to use my little trusty pliers here. I have a couple of these teeny tiny little starfish. And I'm going to use those in a couple of these. And I should have put them into the sand before I put all this other stuff in there. So maybe what I'll do is on this one, I'll take the turtle out first. And I'm going to shove that little starfish into the sand a bit. And then put the turtle back. And I have one more starfish. And I think for this one, I'm going to put that starfish right here and put the turtle back. And let's see, we have some of these little gold sprinkles that I'm going to put in there. This is going to be like undersea treasures, you know, where you might find little treasures under the sea. These are little gold seed beads that I'm putting in here now, like micro beads. And then I have some in like a dark blue, kind of a sapphire-y look. So we'll let a couple of those fall in there. And then we're gonna take our little toothpick, because if you have them all like back here, you're not gonna see them once we pour this, because remember what you're seeing here on top, this is the, actually the back side of your piece. So what you're seeing from here is not really what you're going to see once this thing has cured and been removed from the mold. So these are going to be really cute though. I know it looks like they're really coming out very nicely, so I think I'm going to be really pleased with the outcome on these. And this one, I think what I'm going to do is I have a couple of small sand dollars, although that's still kind of big for that. I don't think I'm going to use it in this one. I'm going to put a little pearl shell there, and I'm going to put, I can use a bigger shell in this one. Put that big blue one there, and maybe a small green one. Okay, and then I'll throw in some treasures with this one too. And we're just gonna grab a handful of these and just drop them in. Sprinkle them around. Okay. Okay, you guys, so here's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to take some of this resin, and I'm actually going to color it because I want it to look like water. And so my next step is going to be, I've got some blue dye and I've got some green dye. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour a little bit of this in here. And I probably need a good amount. If I have to make more, I will. I don't want to waste too much of it because I still would like to use some of this. Oh, and do not take this. This is blue dye by Alumilite. Don't use this. Don't squeeze a big drop in there. What I'm doing here is I'm going to use my toothpick and I'm going to touch it. And then I'm going to touch it on my paper towel, because I don't want too much blue in here. You can see how far that blue goes. I'm even going to take my toothpick out now, and I'm going to mix this with a clean stick, because I want this blue to be I want it to look like water. So, as you can see, that's a really nice, watery looking blue. Voila. Okay, so what I like to do is I like to add a little bit of green, but I think I got just enough blue in there that if I put green in, it's going to get darker than I want it to be. So I'm not going to add the green this time. I'm just going to leave it the way it is. And so here's now where we're going to pray, and we're going to hope that everything doesn't float to the top on these. So I'm going to start pouring this blue in, and I want to make sure, I'm going to use this toothpick here, I want to make sure it gets up under that turtle, because if I don't, then I'm going to end up with a spot under this turtle that is not filled in, and we don't want that. So now I'm pouring, oops. You guys, I'm doing this with the wrong hand, and I set my camera up that way specially so that I would be using my right hand, and I'm using my left hand as if the camera isn't where I want it to be. So here we go. So there's one. Woohoo! Oh, this is so fun. I'm super excited about these, you guys. I've been wanting to do this for a really long time, and I just haven't really had the guts to try it, and I didn't have all the things that I really wanted to put in them. So I kind of put it off a bit. But then when I was at Michael's the other day and I found those shells and I found the sand, and I thought, you know, I think it's about time that I made my my ocean themed resin pieces. So here I am today. Now I get to do it, and I'm super excited. There's still a tiny bit of blue in there, and I think, honestly, I'm gonna just touch that for a second and see if maybe a little bit gets on there. I'm gonna make this even lighter than I made the other blue. This is gonna be super see-through, and I wanna see which way I like it best. I've seen it done both ways, and I've seen different people use the really light blue, and other people use the really deep blue. But for an ocean scene, my feeling is I want it to be clear, but I do want it to look like water. So which is the happy medium? I'm not sure. So I'm going to try a couple of different ways here. This is like super light blue. I mean, you can barely even see the blue, but that's okay. And what I'm trying to do here now is I'm just trying to make sure that I get the sand covered with the clear resin. And the last one I'm going to do is this one over here. And I don't think I'm going to have enough resin to fill this one in completely. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to scrape the sides. Maybe I do. Maybe I have enough. Woohoo! We got it. Okay, so I had enough for that one. All right, so the next thing that I would do here is, let's see if I can move the camera in here. Okay. I'm sorry, you guys. Let's see. Okay. All right, we're not going to do that. Okay, if you could see these up close, and I'm not going to pick these up because then I will disturb them and mess them up. There's little tiny bubbles in these, and those little bubbles can wreak havoc on your project. Now, because these are under the water scenes, it's not as tragic if you get bubbles, but you do want to make sure that the resin has gotten up under those turtles and the shells. You've got shells here with pearls in them. You want to kind of lift those a little bit. Make sure that the resin is up under those. And we have one more of those here. And I want to make sure that resin got up under everything in this one, because see, I just got a big huge burp from that shell over here in this piece. So those burps indicate there was air up under that, and that would have been a huge bubble had we not moved it. So we've got that. Now, the next handy dandy tool that I have is this. I'm sorry, you guys, I got up too close. Doggone it. I'm sorry I was off camera for that few minutes. But what I was doing is I was taking all of these pieces and moving them around and making sure that there's no air bubbles up underneath those shells and things like that. And we had a big air bubble in this one, and we got a big burp out of it. So And then my next tool is this handy dandy little tiny torch. And this I got at one of my little Dollar General stores nearby. They sold this to me for $2.99. It's amazing. You need to have one of these guys, or at least a lighter or something to put heat on the top of these, because there's little tiny bubbles all over in these. And you want to have as few bubbles as you can possibly have in these. But at the same time, because like I said before, because it's an underwater piece, it's kind of not a great big deal, because it's cool to see a few bubbles that pop up because it's underwater. So that's kind of cool. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to light my torch. You can see that's lit. You can hear it. And we're going to pop all of those bubbles. So just very quickly going over this with this torch. Pops all of those bubbles. And what you're going to do is, while this is curing, every once in a while, every 20 minutes or so, you're going to want to take that torch and go over those again for about the first hour or so, until it starts to really cure and pop those, all of those bubbles have come to the surface and popped. So, okay, so we've got that one done. And I'm going to have to move these, so I'll be right back. I'm going to move these to a nice flat surface where they can cure and not be disturbed. And this little guy. Okay, so now we've got these resin pieces, and they have all cured, and I've taken them out of the molds. I probably should have demolded them in front of you guys, but I didn't, so unfortunately you're just going to see the finished products. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put each one on this plate so that you have a white background to look at. Here's one of them. They all really came out. In fact, you know what? I'm just going to put them all on here so that you can see them all. I'm still going to have to do some cleanup because the back sides of them are a little bit rough in places where the moss sort of floated up in the back. But these, let's see, I'm trying to find the right spot to get in. These are the finished products, and then here's one that is from the other project that I did after I finished those. It's a little bird, one of those little foam birds in a little nest with some flowers around it. Not the greatest thing that I ever made, but it's cute, so I thought I would go ahead and show you guys that one too. But let me see if I can zero in on these a little bit closer for you so that you can all see how pretty they came out. They're just awesome. I'm really, really, really pleased with how these came out. And then what I will do after this is I will put a layer of resin over the top and dome them to fill in any imperfections that may be in the top, say from grains of sand that didn't cover real well or what have you. But I will do that, and then they will be ready to turn into pendants and sell. But I really, really love these. I hope you guys love them too. This was a super fun video to make for you. And the next video I will make a couple of my two-toned either one of my peacocks or a butterfly or a fairy or something, where I use two different colors of resin to put those together. But for today I wanted to do this, and like this one you can see I just want to show it a little up close. You can see where I've got like the little shell that has the pearl in it right there, and then my little turtles. Isn't that gorgeous? I just love the way these turned out. And there's the difference between the light and the darker blue. And this probably looks almost completely clear to you, but it actually does have a blue cast. So these came out really cute. And then this is the round one that I did, and it just has a few shells in it and the sand. So that's how that one came out. Not much to write home about, but it's cute. So anyway, that's what I did, you guys, and this is the finished product. And I appreciate you watching. I appreciate you subscribing. Hopefully you like this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up, please. And if you're not already a subscriber, please subscribe and hit the notification button down below so that you can be notified when I do future videos. I really appreciate y'all, and hope you have a really great night, and blessings to all of you. Bye-bye.